Now, when I grew up in Maine as a kid, we used to have baked beans from a can. You just heated them up, served them, and they were still really fun to have. But I had no idea what true barbecue beans were like until I took a trip to Nashville. I tried several different styles of Memphis barbecue and also the sides that came with them, and I fell in love with Southern-style BBQ baked beans. That's what we're gonna do today. So let's fix it. Okay, so I'm gonna start by making the sauce. And first thing is 1/3 cup or 91 grams of ketchup. All right, that's perfect. And once again, I like to use weight whenever I can with the messy ingredients. It just makes it easier. So next is yellow mustard, and we need 3 tablespoons, which is about 45 grams. Next, we're going to add a whole bottle of Sweet Baby Ray's barbecue sauce. And this is the 18-ounce bottle.
Yeah, it does take some effort to get a whole bottle of barbecue sauce out. Just keep shaking and squirting.
Okay, that's most of it. So I like to let the bottle sit upside down for a while, and some of the sauce will make its way to the bottom, and then we can always add another round later. Okay, I don't need the scale anymore, so I'm going to remove the bowl from that. Okay, next is 1 cup of brown sugar. Then we have 2 tablespoons of molasses.
So there's an old saying from my childhood, slower than blackstrap molasses going uphill in the wintertime. I still don't get it.
Then 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar. And 1 tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce.
Note the pronunciation, it's not Worcestershire.
Then we need 1½ teaspoons of garlic powder, or half a tablespoon. And this is a half a tablespoon measurer here, so I'm going to use that.
That half tablespoon came with a set of spoons I bought. I wasn't too sure if I would ever use it, but hey, look, it's handy today.
Then half a tablespoon of smoked paprika. Now we're just going to give that a little stir.
So basically I just keep mixing here until I think the brown sugar is fully dissolved. And that does take a minute.
Well, that smells like barbecue already. All right, now it's bacon time.
I want bacon!
Now, I like to use thick cut smoked bacon. It adds a lot of flavor. I'm going to use 6 pieces.
They were out of the usual bacon that I buy, so I bought this one instead, and I did like it. It was just very difficult to get out of this package. I'm not sure what's up with this packaging.
So I'm going to try to get clever, and I have 2 stacks of 3, and I'm going to try to cut them as stacks of 3 to make it faster. Let's see how that goes.
Oh, chef, always trying to be efficient. So this did work pretty well. I was just being careful to try and cut the bacon bits into equal sizes so they'd saute evenly. And as you can see, stacking them in strips of 3, it did reduce the overall number of cuts I had to make, and it went faster.
Well, I think that worked out pretty well. Now let's move on to the onion and green pepper. Okay, so we're going to do a whole onion.
So I've been trying some different techniques trying to improve my onion chopping, and I kind of like this one the best for now. So what you do is you cut it vertically and then cut off the top part, and then you can see I'm making slits that go up and down the onion, and then you come back across and chop the other way. That seems to work pretty well. And the bottom part of the onion that you leave on there, it holds the onion together while you're chopping.
So one of my complaints about onions is at the store they're getting really, really big. So I decided to buy an organic onion because they're closer to normal size. And I feel like price-wise it's about the same, and I'm not wasting any onion.
So organic onions are more expensive per pound, but I'm not throwing any away, so it actually ends up costing about the same. You can also tell by the tear in my eye that the organic onions are pretty strong.
All right, now let's do the green pepper.
So for chopping the green pepper up, I've been doing this technique where you cut a circle around the top and then kind of pop it out with most of the seeds, and then you cut it from there. And in this case, I think my knife was a little too big, so it kind of broke off part of the pepper. Not a big deal though, I was able to easily recover and then chop it up nice and even.
Okay, now we have to do 4 cloves of garlic.
So that plastic cutting board that I like to use for garlic, it slides around quite a bit. So I finally decided to wise up and put a towel under it. It holds it in place really well. And after taking out some frustrations by smacking the garlic with a knife, it's very easy to peel. And then I just cut off the ends real quick and then just line it up and slice it one way. And then after that's done, rotate the cutting board and chop it the other way. And then it's just a little bit of chop, chop, chop from there.
Okay, that looks good. Now we're ready to drain the navy beans and get the pot started with the bacon.
So I didn't record this part, but I put the navy beans in a colander to drain them and then rinse them out with water until they're all nice and clean. So after about 15 minutes or so, the bacon's looking really good. And this bacon was pretty fatty, so I didn't need to add any olive oil for sauteing. I just used a bacon fat. All right, so now I'm adding the onions. I'm gonna make sure I get all the onions in there. And then I will season and then stir them in. So when you're sauteing and starting to build flavors, you want to make sure you season every time you add an ingredient. Okay, so in go the green peppers, and then once again I will season and stir them in. So that kind of white noise drone you hear in the background is actually my exhaust fan. And I went back and forth turning the fan off and on. I wanted you to hear some sizzle, but at the same time I didn't want to get my whole house full of the smell of cooking onions. So it's kind of a balancing act here.
Man, if you could smell this right now, it smells so good. And we're not even halfway there yet.
I mean, yeah, you have sauteed bacon, onions, and green peppers. What smells better than that? What is your favorite smell when you're cooking? Let me know in the comments.
So with the peppers in there, the water content's getting a little high, so we increase the heat a little bit. Because we don't want everything to steam, we want it to saute.
Yeah, that's true. Ingredients will not brown when there's water in the pot. So I turned up the heat a little bit to try and get the water out of there by evaporation, and then we can go ahead and use the oil to brown things and improve the flavor. Steaming cooks, but it doesn't change the flavor.
So see the bottom of the pan here, how it's starting to get dark brown? That's really good. That's going to be a lot of flavor in there when we deglaze. But I turned the heat down a little bit because I don't want it to turn black.
Now that the water from the onions and the green peppers has evaporated, we can get back to the sauteing. And you can see that nice layer of brown on the bottom of the pan starting to develop, and there's a lot of flavor in there. We're going to want to make sure that we don't burn it though, so don't make the heat too hot. So I'd say the total sauteing time was around 20 minutes or so. And, well, that's 20 minutes of time to develop flavor. But the pan's starting to get pretty dark now, so I decided to go ahead and deglaze by adding water. So after dumping in the liquid to deglaze, you want to use a wooden spoon and just kind of gently scrub the bottom of the pan and remove all the brown bits. You want to get those dissolved in the liquid. That's where your flavor comes from. So I added about half a cup of water, and you can see as I'm scraping away with the wooden spoon, the water's quickly evaporating. And that's fine, just keep an eye on the water level. If the pan starts to dry out again, the brown bits will start to stick to the bottom, and then you'll have to just add more liquid and repeat the process all over again. So it was at this time I realized I made a minor mistake. I forgot to add the garlic, so I'm adding it now. And it's not really a huge deal. I would have liked to have had the garlic in before I deglazed to saute the garlic for a few minutes, but there's very little water in here now, and I can just kind of cook the garlic in what I have so far. And even though this isn't really the preferred method, it should taste fine. Once the garlic's cooked for a few minutes, I can just continue on with what I was doing. Okay, so I just let this cook down some more, let the water evaporate. So I'm getting really close to sauteing the garlic again. You can see there's almost no water left in the pan. And that's how I was making up for not sauteing the garlic with everything else. And honestly, the beans came out fine. So I managed to kind of sidestep a minor error here. That looks really, really nice. So I'm going to go ahead and add my sauce. And just gradually dump it in. Look at that. It looks amazing, doesn't it? So notice how I'm stirring the sauce right away, and you can kind of hear it sizzling as I'm doing that. You want to be careful to mix in the sauce quickly, and you don't want to give it a chance to burn on the bottom of the pan. So that's why I'm continuing to mix until the sizzling sound goes away. And that beeping sound was me just turning the heat down a little bit so I can add the beans and stir it all in. And then we're going to very gradually bring it up to temperature. So I turned down the temperature out of sauteing into more of a slow cook. So as I'm mixing in the beans, I can see the sauce isn't really coating very well, meaning it's a little too thick. So I added another half cup of water, and that should make things a little thinner and easier to coat all the beans. Okay, so as I'm mixing it in, I see it still needs some more liquid, so I went ahead and get some more water to add. And you just want the beans to be covered with liquid when you're getting started. I mean, as these slow cook, some water is going to evaporate and the liquid level is going to go down, so you can definitely add a little extra liquid and be okay. You just keep an eye on it as you cook, and when you check it and stir it every once in a while, you may need to add some more water if the liquid level gets too low.
All right, so now we just cover it up, let it simmer for a while, and then we'll check back in. Okay, so it has been about 15 minutes or so. You can already see that the beans are having a nice color. Now, one of my flavor preferences is to add some liquid smoke. So I'm going to add a couple of teaspoons of liquid smoke. So there's 1, 2.
So I was trying different barbecue beans in Nashville. Some of my favorites had a smoky flavor. And since I don't have a smoker, I just add some liquid smoke to replicate that flavor as best I can. And I find for this recipe, for me, 2 teaspoons of that brand of liquid smoke works great. If you have a different brand, you need to be careful using the same amount because some liquid smoke is a lot more concentrated than others.
So it does need some salt. I'm going to see if I can get a good angle here. Okay, there's about 1 teaspoon. There's about 2.
You may want to adjust the amount of salt you add based on your own tasting preferences, and make sure you're tasting the beans often as they're slow cooking so you can figure out if you want to add more salt. Just remember you can't take salt out, so just add carefully. If you like less salt, maybe start with 1 teaspoon and work your way from there. Yeah, these beans require a lot of patience, but they're so good, everybody's going to ask for more.
Gee, how about more beans, Mr. Taggart? I'd say you've had enough.
So after about 4 hours on the stove, I recommend at least 4 hours, maybe even 6 to 8 hours if you have the time. Just really slow cook, stir it every 15-20 minutes, add water when it gets a little dry. Finally, it's ready to go. Let's do a taste test. I'm really looking forward to this. Oh, that's so good. They have a nice creamy texture of the navy beans, and there's a really sharp bite to it, but it's also sweet enough where the sharpness kind of mellows out. And then you get kind of a tang, and finally you get a little bit of the smoky flavor from the liquid smoke. These beans are awesome. And by the way, if you want to make them vegetarian, it's super easy. Just don't put in the bacon. At the beginning, leave out the bacon, put in some extra oil for sauteing the onions and peppers, and your vegetarian beans will be just about as good as these.
I can't lie!
So I hope you try these beans out at home, share with your friends and family, and thanks for watching.